Generics in Rust is all about zero-cost abstractions, giving you flexibility without sacrificing performance. Let's learn what are generics, how to use generics in functions, generics in structs, and even how traits play a role with generics. Let's get coding. Let's start with a simple idea. Say you write a function that returns the larger of two numbers. You might do this. This function, largest I32, takes two 32-bit signed integers, I32, as input, A and B, and returns the larger of the two. It achieves this by using a simple if-else expression. This works great, but only for I32. What if you want to compare F64, or maybe even character? You'd have to duplicate the function for every type. Not fun, right? Generics let you write this once and reuse it for many types. Here's how we do that. We introduced a generic type parameter t, making it capable of operating on any type that implements the partial ordering trait. The partial ordering trait is crucial here because it guarantees that types implementing it can be compared using operators like greater than, which is necessary for determining the larger of the two values, thus enabling the function to be reusable across various comparable types without duplicating code for each specific type. Let's test it out in main. All of those work because I32, F64, and character all implement the partial ordering trait. We call largest with different data types: integers, floating point numbers, and characters. This demonstrates the function's ability to operate polymorphically across various numeric and character types. So, generics plus trait bounds equals power. Now let's bring that idea into structs. Say we have a struct that holds a single value. We defined a struct named wrapper that encapsulates a single 32-bit signed integer field called value. Nice, but again, only for I32. If we want to reuse it for strings or floats or anything else, we use generics. Here we defined a generic struct called wrapper that can hold a value of any type t. Now, when we create an instance, we specify what type t is. In main, we first create an instance int wrapper where t is inferred as I32, storing the integer 42. Subsequently, it creates string wrapper, with t inferred as string, holding the string hello. Finally, we print the value field from both wrapper instances, illustrating how the same struct definition can be flexibly used to wrap diverse types. So the wrapper of type t works with any type. The compiler will create specialized versions under the hood, no runtime cost. You can even create functions that use the same generic type. Here we extend the generic wrapper struct of type t by implementing a method called get. The implementation block for the wrapper struct signifies that this implementation applies to any wrapper regardless of the specific type t it holds. The get method itself is defined to take an immutable reference to self, the wrapper instance, and returns an immutable reference to the value field within that wrapper. Let's try calling that. In the main function, an int wrapper is created, and then its get method is called to safely retrieve and print the wrapped integer value, demonstrating how methods can be added to generic structs to provide controlled access to their encapsulated data. What if we want a struct that holds two different types? No problem, we can define a struct with multiple generic types. Here we defined a struct called pair that can hold two values of potentially different types, t and u. Now, in the main function, we can do this. Here, two instances of pair are created. The first instance stores an I32 and a string slice, while the second instance holds a floating point number, F64, and a Boolean. Each field can be a different type. Super flexible. Then we print the first and second fields of both pair instances, illustrating how the same generic struct definition can be used to combine and manage diverse pairs of data. Let's clarify something here. You don't have to use generics in structs just to use them in functions. You can write generic functions separately. Here we defined a generic function print twice that takes any type t as input, provided that t implements the debug trait. This trait is crucial because it enables types to be formatted for debugging purposes using the debug formatter in print macro. The function simply prints the given value x twice on the same line. In the main function, print twice is invoked with an integer, a string literal, and a vector of integers, demonstrating its ability to work with various data types as long as they can be debug printed, thanks to the debug trait bound. Sometimes the trait bounds can make your function signatures messy. You can clean them up using a where clause. Here's what I mean. This generic function compare and print that takes two arguments, a and b, of potentially different types, t and u. The where clause specifies that both t and u must implement the debug trait. The function simply prints the debug representations of A and B on a single line. In the main function, an integer A and a string literal B are passed to compare and print, showcasing how the function can accept and print different types as long as they satisfy the debug trait bound. The where clause is easier to read, and you'll see it a lot in professional Rust code. You can also use generics with enums. Here we define two custom generic enums, which mimic the standard library's option and result types for handling the presence or absence of a value and success or failure outcomes, respectively. In the main function, an instance of findOption is created to hold a character, and its variants are matched to print the character. Similarly, an instance of division result is created to represent a successful division, and its variants are matched to print the result. This code demonstrates basic pattern matching for these custom generic types. Let's wrap it up with a mini project. Let's build a logger struct that logs any type that implements display. Here we defined a generic logger of type T struct that holds an item of any type T. The key aspect is the implementation block for the logger struct, for any type T that implements the display trait, which means the log method is only available for logger instances where the generic type T implements the display trait. This trait is essential because it guarantees that values of type T can be formatted as a user-facing string using the display format specifier in print macro. The log method simply prints the item prefixed with log. Now let's use it. In main, int logger and string logger are created with an integer and a string literal, respectively, and their log methods are called, demonstrating how the display trait bound enables the logger to print various data types. And this just works. Clean, reusable, and fast. That's the magic of generics in Rust. Generics might look like magic at first, but with a bit of practice, you'll see they're just another tool, a very powerful one, in Rust's toolbox.